Hi, and welcome back to the History Hut. I'm Jim, this is Dr. K, and as we continue our discussion of Islam and the succession issues, was Umar as successful as Abu Bakr?
Absolutely. He, in fact, far surpasses him.
Oh.
He adopts the title Amir al-Mu'minin, which is commander of the faithful or leader of the faithful. And he takes over just as the Muslim forces successfully attack Damascus in 635. And, you know, just as an extra bit of information from someone who's been to Damascus, I don't know if you have yourself or if you were left at home, there's a wonderful Umayyad mosque there, absolutely spectacular, and certainly well worth going to Damascus to see. It has a long history, and also it has the head of Saladin, the Crusader, and the head of John the Baptist at it. You don't actually get to see the heads, you just get to see the things that the heads are held in, but really quite amazing. And it started its life as a temple to Baal, and then in the Roman era it became a temple of Jupiter, and then in the 4th century AD it was the Church of John the Baptist, commissioned by Emperor Theodosius. And after the Islamic conquest, in fact this Islamic conquest of 634, the site was actually shared by Christians and Muslims. So that's why I think the head of John the Baptist is still there inside, and the Pope went to visit it not all that long ago. It wasn't until 707 that it became just a purely a mosque, you know, an Islamic site, and its architecture is absolutely amazing looking. Its architecture is based on the house of the Prophet in Al-Medina, in the old town of Yathrib, and it was built by Byzantine workers, and it has the most amazing friezes and stuff on it. It's just unbelievable to look at. Anyway, back to Umar. So Umar is there for about a decade, 634 to 644. He took Damascus in 634, and this is just to give you an example of the speed of the expansion. Jerusalem in 638, the coastal towns of Syria and Palestine in 639, and then Egypt in 642. So just an amazing growth. And I should just point out that you're probably thinking to yourself, Syria, how many coastal towns can Syria have when it's actually in the interior? Well, the answer to that is, of course, that other wonderful country that I've happily visited, Lebanon, was considered part of Syria. That's a kind of modern construction. So you have this rapid expansion, and of course this means it's almost the beginning of an empire, and it needs an administrative structure. So he creates a fiscal system to collect taxes, and the taxes are based on land productivity, and also there's a head tax on non-Muslims. So that would be especially the two groups, Jews and Christians, who are called people of the book. So you would pay a jizya, or a head tax. You didn't have to convert. There's no forcible conversions. You're supposed to, the Prophet Muhammad would have said, show people by example that this is a good way to lead your life, and this is a good faith to follow. So no forcible conversions at all. Another thing is that instead of, as remember the Mongols did, dividing up the spoils of war, the booty or the loot, this was replaced with a registration system so that all Arabs were registered, and then they were kind of paid the equivalent of a kind of stipend or a pension. All territory under Islamic control was organized into provinces, and each had a governor, an emir, so each would have its own governor. All the cities were organized or reorganized, and they would have libraries and hospitals. This is a place that, as we'll see later on, just incredible places of learning, centers of knowledge. So as his forces neared Baghdad, the center of Kufa, Kufa, the center of Kufa was founded, and it became one of the key centers of learning. One of the things that I think is quite interesting is that if you were looking at the history of Islamic expansion maybe 10 or 15 years ago, a lot of the names, Karbala, Najaf, Kufa, a lot of the names you would be unfamiliar with them, but because there have been so many wars in recent times, and we have troops in all of those areas, people are like, oh, yeah, I know where that is. So that's quite an interesting change. So under Umar, this was a religious force as well as a territorial force, but Umar is assassinated. And this could have been over the issue of taxation. It looks as though someone from another place that you're familiar with, Basra, upset at heavy taxation, sent an assassin, but that's never really been fully resolved. But before he died, he appointed an electoral council, and I believe there were 6 or 7 in the council, to choose a successor. Ali was part of that council, and they were told to consult the chiefs of the clans and the prominent merchants over who should be the next caliph.
Now I understand there's a bit of trouble brewing, and when would this trouble come to the forefront?
Well, not quite yet, because we've still got the third. We've still got the third caliph, and the third caliph. This is when the trouble really starts to begin. 644 to 656. So he's in there for a while. It's Uthman bin Affan. He's nearly 70. He's the choice. He's a son-in-law of the Prophet 2 times over. He was married to Ruqayya and then to one of the other daughters after she died. So he's still, part of this inner circle. He has a mixed record because there's great expansion, great territorial expansion under his rule as well. And for instance, he faces down the Byzantine attempt to reclaim Egypt. He sets up a navy, uses Egyptian and Syrian shipyards to expand the navy. He attacks places like Cyprus and Rhodes quite successfully. And he actually defeats the Byzantine navy in 655, the year before his assassination, and advances into modern Afghanistan. So, if you were looking just in terms of territorial power, does incredibly well. And of course, I mentioned before, the official version of the Quran is produced in this period, the Uthmanic Quran. It was actually on tour and was in the one of the museums in Ontario a couple of years ago. Just absolutely beautiful. And you can, I think, see parts of it maybe in the British Museum in London. I remember seeing it there once. But there are some problems, and one of the problems is his use of patronage. So placing his relatives in really key positions, giving his kinsmen governorships in areas that they have no real links to. And, this causes problems down the line. There's also worries about corruption among the clan that he comes from, the Umayyad clan. And these become clearer as time goes on. And although he was an old man, he didn't name a successor, and one of the sons of Abu Bakr led a group of insurgents from Egypt against him, and they laid siege to his home. So he's murdered in his home in Medina.
And what happens after his death?
Well, this is the period when the problems begin. Not only had he failed to name a successor, but there were rumors now about who had possibly ordered the assassination, and this is part of the split in the faith, I think. Ali, who was the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad and son-in-law of the Prophet, married to Fatima, was pressured by the insurgents to stand as caliph. And until that point, he had said no, that the Prophet Muhammad had said to him that he should work on the Quran. And, the kind of time hadn't come. But there are also other indications from this, some of the contemporary sources that Muhammad had mentioned Ali as his successor on a number of occasions. So I think, Ali's time was coming. But because there's a bit of uncertainty over who killed Uthman, this leads to really, really big problems. And the two sons of Ali, Hussein and Hassan, had been bodyguards as well at the house at Medina, and they're not involved in this, but something is made of it anyway. So it leads to war with Uthman's kinsman, the governor of Syria, a man with a wonderful name, Muawiyah. I like saying that name. It's almost as good as Shishia. Muawiyah, who felt that Ali was perhaps involved with the death of the caliph. And so it's a struggle between these two factions and the followers of Ali, who believe he had nothing to do with this, and the followers of Uthman's kin who believed that maybe there was something there, and that Ali said on many occasions that he would do his best to track down the people involved, but I think the issue was that there were only two witnesses, a male witness and he was gone, and a female witness who didn't really know the names of the men that had been in the house and was able to identify one, but the one that she identified swore that he had nothing to do with it. So the people who now opposed Ali felt that he hadn't gone far enough or done enough to track down the assassins, and so this becomes a big issue. So yeah, this is really when the problems really kick off.
Does Ali bring stability back?
Well, that's a hard question to answer. He's in power from 656 to 661, and in that time he faces a number of key challenges. He is elected caliph. He does all the right things. He goes to the companions of the Prophet, two of them in particular, and says to them, "Why don't you be the next caliph?" And they say, "No, not yet." And he does consult quite widely. And he is elected caliph, as I said, in 656. And then the expectation would be that he would be followed by one of his sons, Hassan, probably, and then by Hussein. But this doesn't happen. And again, the question is why? Because some followers didn't think that this should be a dynastic succession, so people opposed to Ali are like, well, I don't know if keeping it in the same family is really that important. And then of course others thought that he hadn't acted quickly enough against the killers of Uthman. So the first sign of trouble comes when Aisha, who is the youngest wife, widow of the Prophet Muhammad, led a revolt against Ali, and she's considered to be a highly intelligent woman. She debated with the companions of the Prophet, and she's called the mother of the believers. But some people also think that she was a bit of a troublemaker. She didn't get on well with Ali at all, and she joined two other companions of the Prophet in a battle against him, and it's called the Battle of the Camel, and it takes place near Basra. She's about to, I think she has about 2,000 followers, and she's about to head back to Medina from Mecca, and then she decides to go to Basra to pick up some more followers. I think she has about 3,000, and Ali then decides that he's going to have to come out and try and mediate, or resolve the issue. And the way things work out, the battle actually does take place, and at one point the back legs of her camel are cut to kind of take her out of the battle, and she's taken back to Medina in the custody of her brother, and she steps out of political life and remains there in the precinct of the Prophet's mosque for the rest of her life. But this is the first major challenge against him, and there seemed to be some people working within his own ranks who wanted to see a fight, and so eventually managed to get one, because he had said don't want any fighting, retired to his camp during the night, and this faction moved out and challenged the other side.
Well, that should about do it for part 3 of our discussion. I know, I know, time flies.
That's terrible.
But we'll be back with part 4, and we'll discuss more of what happens with Ali.